And now, the history of fingerprint identification. The use of fingerprint ID goes back to ancient times, although the use of DNA evidence is considered more accurate today. In ancient Babylonian and China, thumbprints and fingerprints were used on clay tablets and seals as signatures. When was fingerprinting first discovered? Using fingerprints to identify individuals has become commonplace, and that identification role is an invaluable tool worldwide, used as proof of a person's identity. In China, perhaps as early as 300 BC, in Japan as early as AD 702, and in the United States since 1902. When did fingerprinting start being used in forensic? 20th century, the French scientist Paul Jean Collier developed a method to transfer latent fingerprints on surfaces to paper using iodine fuming. It allowed the London Scotland Yard to start fingerprinting individuals and identify criminals using fingerprints in 1901. When and why were fingerprints first used in the United States? In 1882, Gilbert Thompson of the U.S. Geological Survey in New Mexico used his own thumbprint on a document to help prevent forgery. This is the first known use of fingerprints in the United States. Who invented the fingerprint system? Although many people laid the foundation for the development of fingerprint science, Sir Edward Henry, a British Inspector General of Police in the province of Bengal in the late 1800s, is credited with taking the research of Sir Francis Galton, who published the first book about fingerprints and their forensic. What was used before fingerprints? Anthropometry was the first scientific system used by police to identify criminals. Before that time, criminals could only be identified by name or photograph. The method was eventually supplanted by fingerprinting. What was used before fingerprinting? Anthropometry. What was the first criminal case to use fingerprints? The first murder case in the United States in which fingerprint evidence was used successfully was in Illinois in 1910, when Thomas Jennings was accused of murdering Clarence Hiller after his fingerprints were found at Hiller's house. When was the oldest known document showing fingerprints? The oldest known documents showing fingerprints date from 3rd century BC, China, in ancient Babylon. Dating back to 1792 to 1750 BC, fingerprints pressed into clay tablets marketed contracts. What are the 4 types of fingerprints? The type of fingerprint was determined by forensic specialists who was kept unaware of the participants' group. Using advanced Henry method, the main types of fingerprints were classed as arch, loop, whorl,